So, lately, and by lately I mean like the last few months, really since this entire year, I've been feeling lonely, like very lonely. And it's not a new emotion for me, but it is a peculiar one. But it's like this desolate loneliness, like this empty feeling in your gut loneliness. And it's not even the loneliness that I experienced last year during my breakup. It's not the loneliness I've experienced when I've been depressed. It's none of that. It's a loneliness I've experienced throughout my childhood, which is something that no child or really any person should ever say. But the last time I remember feeling like this concretely, I was 11 years old. It's that same gut-wrenching loneliness that I felt as a kid that I honestly forgot about, and I have not thought about, and I have not done anything with since I was a child, which is bizarre. Number one, it's like, okay, how the hell did we forget that as a child, like as a 9, 8, 7, 10, 11, like throughout my entire childhood, basically up until the age of 13, I was extremely, extremely lonely. It's definitely a problem when not only do I remember doing it and saying this, I also remember how it felt. I told my therapist multiple times, I mean, from really the age, it might have been 6, 7, regardless, no kid should ever say this, let alone no one ever should say this, like no adult, nobody should ever feel this way. But I kept telling her, you know, I wish I was not alive, or I wish I was not here, or I wish, like, there was always a wishing and a longing and a desire, maybe not a desire, but there was always a wish for me to have somehow disappeared. And that makes me want to cry. What's up, YouTube? It's Julius here. Seems kind of weird to just kind of, you know, have some high energy after I just told y'all that as a kid I was like having suicidal ideation and thoughts. But you know what to do. If you're returning, thank you so much. It's just like super awkward right now. If you're brand new, remember to like, share, and comment, and most importantly, like, fuck that, subscribe to the channel, and then you can like, share, comment, and do whatever your heart desires. I don't really know how to segue after just saying what I just said, so let's just jump right into it. Yes, the loneliness. I've been feeling lonely. I think that this started at the beginning of this year in the sense that I've gone through a lot of changes in the past year, and I think I've talked about them, and you know, some of them being romantic relationships, a lot of them being friendships, like, you know, my professional career, my socially, professionally, monetarily, or financially, however you want to say that. But after processing this over some weeks now, I've realized that, I think it's due to these changes in my life. And not only these changes, it's not like the changes themselves have made me feel like this loneliness. And when I say this loneliness, I mean like, I don't know how to, like, besides, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like, not only do I feel alone, like there can be people around me. There can be people, like my support system is great. Most of my support system, who's really my support system, isn't here in Atlanta. My support system is great, nonetheless. I know that there are people there for me. I know where to reach out. Like, I have a whole toolkit. I know exactly, I have a plan. I know exactly what to do. The loneliness I'm feeling is not just like, oh, I feel like I'm by myself. I'm sad. I want like a romantic partner. I want like a friend. I want someone to talk to. Like, it's no, I know where to go for that. You know, you just jump on Tinder, right? I have my support system, but you can still feel lonely even with people all around you. Like, loneliness is not, like, you can be alone, I'm not alone, but you can also feel alone. I attribute that to the changes in my life in the past. I've been talking about it to people all year, all like the past 2 years. I've done nothing but talk about it, but that's the point. I feel like no one really sees how big of a change my life has been, if that makes sense. I feel like nobody sees how crazy things are for me, whether that's my health, whether that's like me like financially, whether that's me with my job, like I'm like switching careers, or I'm trying to switch careers. I don't know if I should switch careers. My disabilities, like bipolar disorder, ADHD, my anorexia, eating disorder, like body dysmorphia, like all of that shit has gotten so much worse, and I'm struggling with it every single day, even though I've gotten so much better. And by so much better, I mean like I'm not on my deathbed. Quite literally, that's what I mean. Like last year I was yeah, it was bad. I'm not like in crisis, but at the same time, I still struggle with it every single day. Like, every single day, every single minute, every single moment. And it sucks. But it's just like, I feel by myself, and it sucks. And it feels like no one's really looking at how hard I'm trying. No one really sees, like, how hard it's been for me. No one sees me, and I feel invisible. So, childhood, how does that relate? Well, you know, it's interesting. And by interesting, I mean it's kind of sad. And like by sad, I mean like it's depressing. But when I talk about childhood trauma, you know, I talk about it a lot. I talk about I talk about having complex trauma. I talk about going through childhood trauma or going through abandonment trauma, going through attachment trauma. And I mean, this whole series is called Recovering Traumas for a reason. Like, I talk a lot about it. But I don't really talk about one of the biggest instances or one of the biggest things that happened through my childhood that made it, like, traumatic. I think I might have talked about it in one video, but nonetheless, or long story short, I was in the middle, or I guess I was the product of, not the product of, I was in the middle, I think is the right way to say this, from the age of 4 until the age of 13, 12, no. Essentially, no matter who it is, who's going through it, what's going on, a custody battle is going to be hard on all parties. It's going to be hard on the guardian, it's going to be hard on the child, it's going to be hard on the parent that's fighting for custody. Because that's what a custody battle is. It's somebody disagrees with the custody or somebody disagrees with the legal care that the child's been placed in. So, for example, me. My aunt, my mom's sister, was given legal guardianship over me, which means that essentially she has all the rights that a parent would typically have. She has legal custody of me. So I still have my parents, you know, well, not really because they weren't there. My dad was there. He was fighting for me, obviously. My mom was in and out of my life. That's petty. Anyway, I still had my parents, but legally I was guarded by my aunt. She had guardianship over me. She had custody over me. She got to decide legally what I did, what happened, like, as she was the person that you would have to go to do anything with me as a kid. When my mom essentially gave me to my aunt, in terms of legality, you know, giving her guardianship over me, that revoked, I'm not really sure how it all works because I'm not a lawyer or like a judge or anything, but I think that process revokes all, like, custody legally that my father or my mother would have retained over me. Once my aunt had legal guardianship, if my aunt wanted to be like, you don't see your dad anymore, like your birth father, like you don't see him or anybody over there, like, at all, ever again, she had every legal right to do so. The courts probably would have been like, what the fuck, which they kind of were, but, you know, she basically could control everything. Same thing goes with my mother. Even though my mother is the one who gave custody away, and she was my mother and I came out of her, she no longer has, like, any rights to me. But so regardless of who it is, it's not an easy thing, because essentially it means that whatever was going on between the parents that they could not figure it out amongst themselves, like normal people, not normal people, but like, you know, things that go to court are escalated to the courts for a reason. It means that you can't figure it out amongst yourselves, and it means that you're willing to spend thousands of dollars to figure it out. Where normal people, you know, would be like, okay, cool, you're gonna go see him on the weekends, you're gonna do this on the weekends, we're gonna share this, this is how we're gonna do things. They couldn't do that. Essentially, at the end of the day, the court decides where the child should be placed. So in this case, the courts were like, his best interest, my best interest would be to stay with my aunt. And he kept fighting. He kept fighting for a reason. What makes it so hard and what makes it so traumatic is not the court battle itself. It's a kind of like a compounding. If you understand complex trauma, then you understand that it's trauma that happens over a long period of time. So, looking at my life, number one, I was born unexpectedly. I was born and quite literally I just learned this. Finally, I have a concrete timeline, but I was born and essentially nobody was there to assume, like, responsibility for me. Or nobody was there to claim me or, like, take care of me or to, like, you know when children are born, like, they go home with their moms and their dads and they go, big happy family, take pictures and all that, and it's like a great thing. I was born in the hospital. My mom was on drugs, and, like, I guess I was too, technically, because I came out of her and she didn't know she was pregnant. So we stayed in the hospital for a while because we were sick. And then after that, she stayed in the hospital, I believe, some more because she was, like, really sick. I went to go stay with my grandmother. And by this time, my dad, like, knew I was born. He sent, like, signatures and faxed over some shit that said he was my father. So he claimed me legally. But, like, nobody was there for weeks. No, for 2 years, because I asked my father point blank, like, when did you come to see me? Like, when did you come to get me from Chicago? Because I did live with him for a very brief time period. He was like, oh, I came in 1998. And I'm like, okay, well, I was born in 96, so what the fuck? My mom was not around for whatever reason. She was around there at first because obviously she gave birth to me. But then she left, and she told my dad, you need to come get him. And my dad wasn't wanting to. I was with my grandmother. I was with some aunts. I was jumping. I was, like, in so many different places. Nobody was there. So right off the bat, if you know anything about development, child development, baby development, anything, the ages from 0 to 4 are, like, crucial for developing that. I didn't have that. So already abandonment trauma, abandonment anxiety, all the shit that has to deal with abandonment, just, it was ingrained in me. Like, I grew up, or I was born into an environment where literally nobody was there for me. Nobody was there. That's just, like, sorry I keep saying that over and over again, but, like, I feel like I've been gaslighted by people, my father, into believing that somebody was there, and nobody was. Because that's, like, if somebody was, we probably wouldn't have all these issues. Sorry, I'm getting angry again. So, there's that. I think some of the trauma also comes from the fact that I left my father. Like, didn't have him for the first 2 years of my life, didn't have anybody, was tossed around, whatever, not tossed around, but passed around. Lived with him for like a year, maybe less than a year, I don't know. From 1998 to 2001, essentially, I was with him. And when I say I was with him, again, I was still being passed around, and I was being left places, and he had to work, whatever it was. But me going to Chicago was kind of my choice. You know, it was, and when I say it was my choice in the sense that my dad asked me, he was like, do you want to go see your mother in Chicago? I said yes. And that's because there was a family member of ours, like, family friend, essentially. They weren't, like, blood related to me, but they were. It's a long story. I said yes. I went with them, just by myself. You know, I didn't go with my father. My father didn't take me to Chicago. There was no, like, normal handling there. But as a kid, as a 4-year-old, I jumped in the car and went to go see my mom. You know, it was perfectly safe, perfectly we trusted those, like, I still know those people today. Perfectly safe in that regards, but, like, what 4-year-old do you know that's going to jump in a car like that and be like, all right, I'm going to go to Chicago? I was in Tennessee, like, hundreds of miles away, to go see, like, their mom. Like, most kids would be like, oh, I'm afraid, or I don't know y'all like that, or like, Dad, come with me, or whatever. I was ready to go. Left my dad's side of the family, abandonment. Not like it's their fault, I decided to go, but, like, the way they let that happen was just, it's kind of sketch. Got to Chicago. I lived with my mom for, like, maybe the summer, I think. Like, my birth mom, I lived with my mom for the summer. And then that's when she gave me away to my aunt. And at the time, you know, I didn't really know she gave me away, because as a kid, you're not really processing all of this, but she gave me away. And I just didn't see her anymore. I saw her, but, like, again, it was sort of the in and out of my life piece. So there, boom. So many different households, so many different ways of being abandoned and left and not really having a place, to then be in a solid place, but at the same time, everything that you knew from your past, which was mostly my dad's side of the family, I didn't see them. And that's a big question I have, in the sense that, like, my aunt and my mom's side of the family just did not let me see them. And I think that's what started the custody battle. I don't know why I wasn't allowed to see them. I say mom's side of the family and dad's side of the family, like, very loosely. Like, it was really just my dad and my aunt, and my dad and my mom. Like, those were the only real parties that were, like, against each other. But essentially what made this traumatic was not only, like, the beginning of my life being so haphazard, so, like, just unstable in terms of household. Like, I was always safe. I was always in a safe environment. I was always taken care of. I was never hungry. None of that shit happened. I was never abandoned literally on the side of the road. Thank God none of that happened. But at the same time, it's like, I never had a home, if that makes sense. I never had a home. So when I lived with my aunt and uncle, it was like, okay, everything I knew from the past, my dad's side, I was just like, that was erased. And I know that was erased. And that, like, it wasn't erased on purpose in terms, well, it wasn't like they told me, like, they don't exist. It was just that when I finally did see my father again, I don't remember exactly when that was, but if I left him at 4 years old, maybe it was like 6 years old. Because when I remember when I saw him, I saw my sister, I saw my cousin, I didn't remember who they were. The families, my families were not, both sides were not, like, you know, normal. It's like growing up and looking back on it, it was petty ass shit. Like, okay, I couldn't talk to my father, I couldn't see my father, I couldn't go down there for summers, and this had to be handled in the court. It's like, why is that? Another memory that has come up was that I remember having to speak to my father, my birth father. I remember having to go down to the principal's office on Fridays in elementary school. I had to have been, like, in first, second grade, I think. I think this maybe first and second, maybe up into third grade. But the only way that I spoke to my father was on the phone on Fridays in the principal's office. Like, That's literally how I spoke to him. I didn't call him when I was at the house, at my home, like at my aunt's house, in my home where I lived. I didn't talk to him then. I don't think I talked to him any other day of the week except for Fridays for like 30, not even 30 minutes because it was during lunch. So I had to miss recess, which was, I guess, was a big deal for me because I was a kid. But like, that's how I engaged and talked to my father. I didn't talk to anybody else on that side of the family. And it's just like, looking back on it, it's like, okay, now what the fuck was that for? Cause like, I can't picture a world where that would have been like, I don't know why that would have even been okay. And like, I guess maybe they thought my dad was dangerous, but if you thought that, then you could have, I don't know. Like, it's this petty shit that happened. And then, my dad made things like 10 times worse in the sense that they both did. Both sides made things worse. But like, the comments that were given to me as a kid, like my dad literally told me when I was little, like 10 years old, he was like, I want to chop your auntie up into little bitty pieces and feed her to tigers. Now, he will say that this is completely normal and that I should have been able to handle that as a kid, and he has no regrets at all. Like, literally, we had this conversation like last week. He has no regrets. And I'm just like, okay, so you're insane. So many different expletives I want to say to you because you don't talk to kids that way. You don't say that to kids. There are things like, and when I say there are comments that were made to me as a kid, those are the comments I mean my dad made. Like, there was like crazy ass shit like that. Basically saying that, you know, the woman I lived with, the woman that I loved, the woman that I still love, the woman that became, regardless if you like it or not, regardless if you have beef with her or not, she became like a mother figure. She is a mother figure to me. You told me as a kid that you wanted to chop her up into little pieces and feed her to tigers. Like, what? Who does? Like, who the fuck does that? No wonder I wasn't living with you. Crazy. But like, that just like, that was one of 1,000 different comments. And if it wasn't that, it was that, you know, I was told that I was a liar as a kid by him. I was told that I was a liar as a kid by him. I was told that, you know, my aunt and uncle were liars. My mom was a liar, that they lied in court about like why I shouldn't be seeing him. I was told that, you know, I was told that I didn't know how to love, and when I would say like, I love you, Dad, I'll talk to you later, back, you know, eventually when I was allowed to actually see him and speak to him somewhat regularly, I think that was after like 3rd grade or something like that, when I would come down for the summers. But bitch, you don't remember shit. You're like 60-something years old. Of course you don't remember. And you're not the one being traumatized by it. But I would say like, I love you, Dad, you know, just kind of just like ending the conversation. He says, oh, well, you don't know what love is. You don't know how to love. You don't love me. And it's just like, things like that. It's like, okay. So, as a kid, I'm internalizing this, I'm processing this, and none of this helped the situation that I was already fucked in. Like, my situation, my shit was already fucked. My brain was already fucked. My development was already screwed. These little comments that you made that, like, aren't, like, little small comments. You know, parents always kind of, like, fuck us up, you know, traumatically, and, like, childhood trauma, ha ha ha, our parents suck. Like, these weren't, like, small comments. These were, like, big things that you should just not say to people. And somehow, and I know how, but it's just, I don't know how to explain it, but it would all tie back into this court case. It would all relate to this court case. And it was like, for as long as this court case was going on, shit was bad. And it wasn't just my father. Like I said, my aunt, my mom's side, my aunt wouldn't like let me see my dad. I don't know why I didn't see my dad regularly until I was in 3rd grade. I have no idea why. I'm sure she had her reasons, but like, you know, none of them make sense to me. And on top of that, while my aunt did stop this because she listened to me, because maybe she's like fucking sane and not crazy, she didn't stop this until at least like 5th grade. So like by that time, court case was almost done. Like I was almost an adolescent. Like, so basically it was my entire childhood. But you know, whatever. Not whatever, it fucking sucked. But, you know, my aunt did the same thing. She would not say, like, I want to chop your dad into little bitty pieces and feed him to tigers. She wouldn't say that, you know, she didn't, like, didn't know how to love as a kid. She didn't say that I didn't love her. She didn't say any crazy shit like that. But what she did say was, like, she would vent. I feel like it was venting in a sense. You know, like how you're venting to a friend or you're just saying things in the car. Like, you're going to the store and you're just like, oh my god, this bitch did this and I can't believe they did this and they're fucking crazy. Oh my god. She basically would do that with me, and I'm not sure if she realized to this, but she definitely did realize it eventually because she doesn't do it anymore and she hasn't done it since, again, middle school. But she would talk about my mom, she'd talk about my dad, and talk about how like they're mentally ill and how crazy they are, and like just how like I just couldn't go to live with them, and like basically made them seem like, I don't think she did this on purpose, but like she made it seem like they were these terrible, crazy ass people who were on drugs and on the streets and just like not okay to be around, and like the people you don't want to become. That's what was implanted in my head. And there's a few reasons, like, obviously when my mom would come and go and she would show up and she wouldn't be there, and like obviously those conversations had to happen. But like when I say it's the way these conversations happen, it's not that. It wasn't like, caring and being like, your mom is having problems. Your mom's having like, she has mental health issues. She has like things like that. It was like, your mama crazy, bitch. She didn't say it like that, but like basically it's what it was like. And it got to the point I remember as a kid saying like, I need you to stop it. I need you to stop talking about my parents. I need you to like you're my parent too, but like stop talking shit about my parents, because like I'm fucking going crazy. So there's like this whole story is fucking huge because I have never talked about it, but it's petty ass shit like that, because now that I'm looking back on it all, I'm like, that shit was really just not as serious as everyone made it seem. Like, yes, I understand the difficulties in a custody battle and the difference, like the difficulties of knowing what's best for the child. Like, fuck the custody battle, that could have happened. But like all of the shit that happened, like because of it, like the fighting, like me being put in the middle, me quite literally, my dad saying like, you need to make a choice. Kids don't make choices in this decision, the judge does. But like, you need to make a choice and they're lying to you and you need to wake up and blah, 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 you need to run away. Like all these things that were said to me, and like then my aunt essentially saying she would never say you need to stay here because she knew it was not like my choice, but she would be like, your parents are crazy, you don't want to go live with them, you don't want to go live with your father, he's crazy, like he does all these things, he's crazy, he's dangerous, he's uneducated, this is the best place for you to live, all this other shit. Like I never felt like I had a true home growing up as a kid at all. I felt alone because I quite literally was being put in the middle between two sides of the family, it felt. And I felt just lonely in all of this. Like I felt like I had no one to talk to. My mom was in and out of my life, so she wasn't around. I had no siblings. I have siblings, but like I don't talk to my brother, or I didn't talk to my brother. I still don't talk to my brother. And my sister, I didn't, like, number one, she was still a kid as well. Number two, I didn't really get the chance to see her or talk to her until after the custody battle is when I actually got a chance to like real talk with her. So like I was in Chicago. My dad's side of the family was in other states. My mom's side of the family was not around. Like we didn't have, like my family in Chicago essentially was my uncle's family. And he was not my blood relative. And it's like great. They were, supportive and all that jazz. They treated me like family. Love them. Great. Cool. They were not my blood family. And meanwhile, my crazy ass blood family was fighting and acting fucking crazy. And it's just like, it was a lot, y'all. So, like, that's the compounding trauma that I've, like, been woken up to, or, like, I forgot about. I think, like, there's lots of different feelings I had about it, but I think, essentially, I attributed all the fighting, all the negative comments being said, all of the craziness that was that time period in my life, I attributed all of that to the court case and to me, essentially being like, or thinking, if I was not here, if I was not alive, objectively speaking, still knowing this to be true, like, I understand all the good blah, 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 you want to say, like, oh, you were born, you were a joy, you were precious, like, whatever, you're like a fucking gift from the universe, whatever you want to say. Objectively speaking, if I was not around, if I was not born, none of this would have happened. But I know, like, I've processed that part now. I'm, like, not as, like, focused on that. But as a kid, I really was focused on that. I was just like, wow. You know what the, like, common, like, theme here is? Or, like, what, the one thing that, like, I felt like I was the problem. Because, bitch, I was the problem. But, like, the way I was internalizing it was just not healthy. I felt like if I went away, then, number one, the thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that were spent on both sides of this would not have been spent. They would have had money. My sister would have had money for college. My aunt and uncle wouldn't have had, like, spent, like, life savings. Like, everyone's spending thousands, like, at least, like, they could have had, like, 3 other kids or something. I just know I don't know the exact figure, and I don't need to be putting it out there like that. But, like, thousands of dollars were spent on lawyers and just fighting. That wouldn't have happened. No one would have trauma from any of this. No one would have been fighting. No one would have been, like, stressed the fuck out if I wasn't there, if I wasn't alive, if I wasn't the one causing these problems. And, like, I wasn't expected. I wasn't born. I was not expected. In my mind, I was not supposed to be born. I was not supposed to be there. And that's why I felt alone. I felt, like, alone as though no one saw me, or, like, well, as if no one saw me. I was like a problem to be dealt with after the fact I got there. No one wanted me when I was first born. My dad didn't come up to Chicago until 1998. And I wasn't living happily with my mama. So, like, nobody wanted me when I first got there. And then everyone was fighting, not necessarily for me, it felt like. It felt like they were fighting about me. Everyone's fighting about me. Like, oh, we gotta deal with this child figure out where he has to go. Like, I didn't feel like I felt like I had a home in Chicago with my aunt and uncle. I felt like I had a home. I was happy at times, but like at other times I wasn't, and most times I wasn't. I felt very alone, and while not as severe, that's how I've been feeling lately. I just feel like my mental illnesses have gotten to the point where like they're disabilities for me. I'm living with a disability. My life has changed completely, and nobody sees it. Nobody like sees that like I'm not the same person, and not in a good way, not in a bad way either. But like it just is. It just is what it is. But yeah, I've rambled long enough. This video is long as fuck. Honestly, it's fucking amazing that I'm still here and kicking and just trying to carry on with some semblance of normalcy. Cause like, this shit's crazy. But yeah, that's about me. What about y'all? I would love to hear about y'all. I've had my time passing the stick. Y'all can talk now. Remember to like, share, comment, whatever your heart desires. I love to hear from y'all. Like, truly would love to hear from y'all. If y'all have any crazy-ass stories, crazy-ass traumatic experiences, like, I'm so sorry those happened to you. I really am. I don't want y'all to relate to anything I'm saying. But I don't want to feel alone in this because I have not met anybody else who's been through quite this level of craziness. I've heard some sad stories about, like, sexual abuse, about poverty, about all those things. But, like this shit was purely just petty. No one had, it was just petty shit. Petty adults. Literally petty adults that ruined my life. And the fact that there was drugs in the beginning and no one wanted to claim me. But still, video's over. Let me not go back into it. We have more time later. All right, y'all. Peace. Thanks for watching.